What are the biggest success stories you've seen with art therapy?
I'm going to go back to one from the exhibition. There was a wonderful client. Um, so they give them all different fake names and everything like that to obviously protect their anonymity and stuff. And they went by R. And they had given a diagnosis of terminal cancer. And at first they were very angry in the first sessions. And they just couldn't accept it. They were just like, everything's against me. They had severe depression, they didn't want to sit and talk or anything like that. They were just very closed off and just not wanting to accept reality, essentially. And with this, it was a lot, and they actually recommended them, we've got you approved for these art therapy sessions through the hospice. Give it a try, see what happens. And at first they wouldn't go in on their own. They would go in with their partner. So their partner would just sit while they were in their space, and, they would just let them make art. And at first they would make art in the corner of the room as far away from the therapist as possible, because they didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't want to accept. They weren't ready to have that journey yet of acceptance and processing the news that they've received and what was the inevitability. And eventually, as it got to the third session and then started not going into that corner, they actually came to the table that the therapist was sat and actually started creating in front of them and openly showing what they were doing. And part of that was because every week they would leave whatever they made thinking it was a mess, because they would just chuck paint everywhere all over the table, just spill anything they could. And they would just look at that as a mess. But as part of one of the duties of an art therapist, they kept that piece of artwork and they kept it safe, and they made sure to bring it out every session, whatever they made, so that they knew that whatever you create here, whatever, I'm not just going to chuck it away and throw it in a bin. I'm going to keep it safe for you. I'm going to make sure that it's looked after, and so on. So having seen that and identified that, they were like, okay, I'll open up and, share this experience with you of what I'm making. And what started out as big spills ended up becoming actually quite dainty bits of they did drawings of trees and stuff, and nature and stuff growing, or stuff decaying and things like that. And it was as if they were recognising their growth was being stunted, which was quite interesting in that journey. And eventually, by the time it got to the halfway, they were actually starting to talk and go, this isn't right, this isn't fair, and getting all that emotion. And eventually they were able to attend sessions without their partner in the room and be able to openly express themselves. And then at the end, the last image that they made, it was a tree, and it had leaves that were all made with gold leaf, and it was a pure, wonderful picture of acceptance of it's bloomed into this final form of their reality, but they've accepted that and they've taken the chance to embrace that as they can. And that was quite powerful, that they've been able to go from something where they just want to hide away and shut away from the world, and then eventually opened up and bloom and grow like this tree had in the end. So, to me, that was quite a powerful thing. And this client openly talked about their journey at the exhibition with them. I actually got to meet them, which was great. And, you could see the difference when they were looking at what they made that was on display, and see how they've got started and now have come to this point of where they go, right, I'm going to embrace what I've got left and go from there. Quite moving stuff.